Right then guys, how's it going and welcome back to your football predictions. I did not do a predictions video last week because of the midweek football, but we are back again to look at this weekend's Premier League games. We'll have a quick look at my predictions from the last video we did, which wasn't the weekend, it wasn't the midweek football, it was the weekend before that, so I won't go through them in too much detail, but they were tough games to predict. I got a prediction right for a change. Newcastle did win 2-0. But Crystal Palace beating Leicester 4-1. No one predicted that. Liverpool Man U 0-0. No one predicted that. Chelsea Man City 0-0. No one predicted that. A couple of people predicted that Man City would win the League Cup final on pens. But as for actual scoreline predictions, I had loads of people who got that Newcastle would win 2-0. What I had to do after that was go through and see who got the most correct outcomes to try and find a winner. Believe it or not, I'm technically a joint winner this week, which hasn't happened in a very long time. But I will shout out Matthew, Jun, Team, Josh, Liz and James, Cameron, Blue, Atharva and BC. A lot of people to shout out there. There's no real official winner this week because there was a lot of people. But well done to everyone I've just shouted out. And remember, if you want to be shouted out in the next predictions video, which will be next week, to make sure to get your predictions down in the comments below. I'll go through all of them before the first game at the weekend kicks off. And as always, I've picked 4 games and we'll go through them now. To kick things off on the Saturday at 12:30, we have got Crystal Palace taking on Brighton. So, Crystal Palace are currently sitting in 13th place and are 8 points off the relegation zone. And I'm saying that as if I think they're going to have any trouble. I don't think Crystal Palace are going to have any trouble, but it just shows from 13th down to 18th, 8 points. Which does actually seem like a fair bit, but it's only 3 games, so you just don't know, and there is still enough games left. But like I say, I don't think Crystal Palace are going to have a problem there. In Crystal Palace's last 5 games, they have won 3, they've drawn 1, and they've lost 1. In their most recent game, they beat Burnley 3-1 at the weekend, which was a good win. As for Brighton, they are sitting 15th in the league, so they are 2 places behind Crystal Palace and 3 points behind Crystal Palace, and they are just 5 points above the relegation zone. Now, Brighton do have a game in hand over all of those teams around them, so if they did win that game in hand, they would be 8 points clear of the relegation zone. And I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago, I honestly thought Brighton was so far clear of it, and then all of a sudden, obviously the game in hand isn't going to help when teams around you are winning, and you still have to play that game in hand. But yeah, they've been sucked into it a little bit. So for these two teams, it's going to be a big game. Brighton's last 5 games, they have won 1, they've drawn 1, and they've lost 3. In their most recent game, they beat Huddersfield 1-0. So again, they're playing bottom of the league team, but it was important for them to get a win because of where they've kind of landed themselves at the minute. So like I said, the two teams, similar places in the league, similar situations in the league, if you like. And as for a scoreline, I think I'm going to go Crystal Palace. I've not wrote any of my scores down this week. It's the first time in a while, so I'm literally just going to go for it. I'm going to go Crystal Palace 2-1. Yeah, and it's a bit of a derby, that one as well, so should be a good one. Next up on the Saturday, the 3 o'clock game I've gone for is Newcastle taking on Everton. So Newcastle currently sitting 14th in the league, 6 points off the relegation zone. It's becoming a bit of a theme talking about that because it is honestly so tight around there with so many teams. But yeah, Newcastle 6 points off the relegation zone at the minute. Got themselves in a decent position after the win against City. Following that was the loss against Spurs, which was frustrating, the draw against Wolves, and then a win over Huddersfield and Burnley. So 2 teams in that relegation battle with Newcastle came out with 6 points from those 2 games. And then at the weekend, went and lost against West Ham. I was there, had a fair bit to drink. It was a good away day, it was just a terrible game, which was frustrating. But, as I say, because of the win against Huddersfield and Burnley, it wasn't as precious against West Ham as it could have been if we hadn't have already gotten some good results under our belt. But it's certainly going to be a tough one this weekend, taking on Everton. As for Everton, they are currently sitting 10th in the league, and I'm not going to tell you how many points they are off relegation, but I am going to tell you they are currently 6 points off 7th place. So if they're still looking to try and grab that potential Europa League spot, 6 points, 2 wins, it's certainly doable. And in Everton's last 5 games in order, they lost 3 in a row, but then they bounced back and beat Cardiff, and then at the weekend drew against Liverpool 0-0, which was also another game I would not have expected to have been 0-0. But as for this game, Newcastle are at home, obviously had some very decent form, and then a poor performance against West Ham, I have to say. And then Everton had been on some poor form, then went and got a win against Cardiff, and then a draw against their local rivals. You know, it's the Newcastle home form that has been so good. You know, again, the Man City, the Huddersfield, the Burnley, so still technically undefeated in a few games at home. It's the away form that's kind of let us down a little bit. So in that thinking, you know, maybe we could see a Newcastle win this weekend. But Everton are a good side. I think I'm going to go 1-1. Yeah. 1-1. But I want to see a Newcastle 3 points. I will add that in there, but I'm going to be as completely impartial as possible. And I think Everton are a decent side, so I'm going to go 1-1. Moving on to the Sunday, the 2:05 kickoff, we have got Chelsea taking on Wolves. Now, Chelsea are currently in 6th place. Wolves are in 7th place, so just 1 place between them. But Chelsea are 13 points ahead of Wolves. So, you know, we'll talk about the top 6. I don't think the gap between the top 6 and then 7th, 8th, 9th and whatever is normally quite so large. But anyway, Wolves are going to want to turn the tables on that this weekend, I'm sure. But sticking with Chelsea for now, they are, as I said, in 6th place. They are 1 point off Arsenal, who are in 5th. And they are 2 points off Manchester United, who are in 4th. So that is certainly, you know, it's still as close as it was when I was talking about this weeks ago. It literally is that close. So it's getting more and more exciting to see what is going to happen in the next few weeks. As for Chelsea's recent form, they did lose against Man City in the league. They then also lost to Man City in the League Cup final. After that, they've picked themselves up. They went and beat Spurs, and then they beat Fulham. You know, losing the cup final is never going to be easy for you, but then to come back and beat Spurs and Fulham, 2 London clubs back-to-back following that, you know, they've got themselves back into gear. As for Wolves, now I know I've just mentioned there's a big gap between 6th and 7th, and that's just the way the Premier League's been for a while. But the fact that Wolves are sitting in 7th is still amazing. They just got promoted. And after the top 6, you know, everyone talks about the top 6. Wolves, who have just been promoted, are 7th. So they're having a cracking season. As for Wolves' most recent games, the last 5, they've won 2, they've drawn 2, and they've lost 1. Most recently, they beat Cardiff at the weekend 2-0. So, what is going to happen in the game between the two of them? I mean, Chelsea actually play tonight in their Europa League round of 16 first leg against Dynamo Kiev. So, who knows what's going to happen in that game. But as for the Chelsea versus Wolves game, I mean, again, it's on telly. We want to see a good game. We want to see some goals. I think it will be good for Wolves to maybe get an early goal, and then Chelsea will have to come out and go for it a little bit more. But I'm gonna back Chelsea. Let's go 3-1 Chelsea. And to finish things off on the Sunday again, but at 4:30. The 2 other teams I mentioned who are chasing that top 4 space, we have got Arsenal taking on Manchester United. So, again, Arsenal are in 5th place. Man U are in 4th place. Arsenal are 1 point off Man U. So this game could seriously switch some things up depending on what happens. Arsenal's last 5 games, they've won 3, they've lost 1, they've drawn 1. Most recent game, was the Saturday morning game when they drew with Spurs 1-1, where was the Harry Kane penalty actually a penalty, and then Aubameyang went and missed a penalty right at the end that could have given Arsenal the win in that one. So, you know, they had a chance at the weekend to go ahead of Man U, and now they've got another chance again of doing it against Man U. As for Man U, in their last 5 games, they have won 4 and they've drawn 1, most recently beaten Southampton 3-2. And Solskjaer's win-game ratio in the Premier League continues to be insanely good. They did play in the Champions League last night against PSG. I don't actually know what happened. I've not seen it yet. It's starting in half an hour. I'm recording this a day early. So you guys will know if they did manage to pull it back and make it through, or whether they did go out. Either way, that could potentially change how the players are feeling going into the game against Arsenal at the weekend. And the same with Arsenal. They are playing tonight in their round 1 first leg of the Europa League against Rennes. So yeah, there's a lot of football for these two clubs at the minute. As for a prediction of the two facing off, Arsenal are at home, so they've got the home advantage. Solskjaer doesn't seem to lose in the Premier League, so Man U have got that advantage. As for the two teams facing up, I'm tempted to go 2-2. I'm bottling it a little bit by going 2-2. I feel like I should pick a winner, but 2-2. And that's it, guys. So those are my predictions for the weekend up there. Make sure to get all of your predictions down in the comments below, and I will go through all of them before the first game kicks off on Saturday at 12:30. So you've got tonight, all of tomorrow, and Saturday morning to get your predictions in. And as I say, I will go through all of them and I will shout out the winner in next week's prediction videos. Alright, hope you've all enjoyed it. If I don't speak to you before the weekend, have a good one, and I'll catch you later.